I remember sitting on the floor in my bathroom and reading this blog that was actually about nutrition, but it started talking about um, really owning the energy that we come to this world with and seeing it not as something that we need to hide, but something that when we embrace it, we actually flourish.
Welcome everybody to Unleash Your Greatness. I'm Adam Platt. Today I'm super excited to have my guest on is Angie Spartz, and she is a certified emotion code practitioner, tiny habits certified coach, certified Reiki master or practitioner, a yoga instructor, and a certified group fitness instructor. She's got all these amazing certifications and so many amazing things. And I'm just super excited to have her on the show today. Angie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm super excited because you and I, we met, it's been a little over a week ago at an event. We were at an event together and we got to kind of go around and meet different people and learn a little bit about them. And when you came around, like introduced yourself, you just had like this fire, this positive energy about you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go talk to her. And that's when I decided to invite you to come on the show and tell your story. And as we chatted, you told me a little bit about your story and what you do and what your passion is about helping women heal from the inside out. And just, it's such an amazing story. So I'm super excited to have you tell some of that backstory and how you went from, because most people don't wake up one day and just say, hey, I'm going to all of a sudden be a tiny habits certified coach and
Right.
all these things. There's a journey, there's a progression that happens there. And so I want to have you kind of explain how your journey progressed to where you are today, where you're helping women overcome some of the things that stop them in their life.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I have to let you know, when you said I saw a fire in you, that is like the best compliment I could receive, because it's one of those reminders to me that I'm showing up authentically, because for years and years and years, I tried to hide that fire because it didn't feel safe to let it out. It felt like that energy inside of me would hurt people or hurt myself versus help. So that's actually a big piece of my story. So now when I get compliments and people are like, oh, when I meet you, I can just tell, you're dynamic or you have fire in you. I'm like, oh, yay. Because that just means healing works. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And the coolest thing is that the name of your company is Phoenix Rising Wellness, and my wife and I's company is Rise to Connect, and we both have a phoenix as kind of like our logo mascot type thing. And you're right, like that's amazing that you've been able to rise and heal from all these things that have happened in your life to where you are today, where you do have that fire, like the phoenix rising, right? And
yes.
I love that. So,
yes.
Very
yes.
cool.
And the first time I heard the phoenix story was back in 7th grade when we were learning about mythology. And I remember it striking a chord in my heart and not knowing why. And just ever since then, that's always kind of been in the back of my mind. So that image and that story. So
yeah,
I really do believe we all have that power within us to rise up. So yeah, a little bit of my background. I mean, yeah, as I mentioned, I spent years, most of my life, trying to hide and contain my energy because it felt not safe. I starting back in childhood, I had been, a lot of us get picked on in grade school and stuff, but I had been picked on quite a bit. And so I decided that it's better to just be quiet. It's better to, in some ways, be small, but then I still had this drive within me. So I was like, well, I'm going to be the best I can be at. I might not be the prettiest. I might not be the strongest. I might not be the fastest. I'm going to show you I'm the smartest and I'm going to be determined. So that's where my determination, where I let it out, and found myself really concerned about presenting myself perfectly all the time, always having the right answer. And I never thought I had a fear of failure till I really started doing healing work and going, oh, I did. I really only thought it was safe to answer if I knew I'd be right. I only thought it was safe to step out if I had put every duck in a row before I did it. And it led me to great outward success, but I was crumbling inside. So I graduated in the top 2% of my high school class. I graduated from college cum laude. I said that wrong, summa cum laude. But, and I was recruited by a big five, at the time, big five CPA firm right out of college. I was working for Arthur Andersen. Everything on the surface, I was presenting this picture of I'm successful, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, and inside every day, I felt like I was dying a little bit inside. I did not like my job. I chose it out of fear versus where I really felt a passion. Even way back then, I felt a passion for helping people. But I was too scared to do it because I couldn't really envision what it would look like. And accounting was the easy path. So I went that route. And I was super critical of myself all the time. And when you've probably heard when they say, oh, what we feel about ourselves is what we'll project out to others. So I was critical of myself. I was critical of people around me. I had incredibly high standards that weren't fair to put on myself or on other people. It was a challenge. And it all started to culminate and boil over when I got married and realized that life wasn't what I thought it would be in the marriage. I quickly started to realize that my then husband was really more married to his job and his career and friends and family of origin than to me. And there was some drinking that I had concerns about, and it was negatively impacting our relationship. And in addition to all of that, it kind of felt like chaos all the time. We were living in a neighborhood where we actually had very dangerous neighbors. The area itself is not a dangerous area. We happen to have dangerous neighbors who at one point threatened to kill my then husband. And it was scary enough where I was pregnant and I was hiding the fact that I was pregnant from them. So anytime I went outside, I made sure to have like a big coat on. And anytime we would leave the house to like go out to eat, we'd be like, what's our house going to look like when we come back? So there was all of that stress and all stress of work. He had started a new business. It was working crazy hours. I was still working. And I still had this pressure to be perfect. When all this chaos was going on around me, like it's not possible to keep all those balls in the air all the time. And I didn't want to drop any of those balls. And what ended up happening was I started to physically not do so well. And emotionally, it was hard to just regulate how I was feeling. It was coming out not in healthy ways. And as we had our kids, we found out that they were basically sensitive to the world. Our oldest started breaking out in the hospital. Wow. And by the time he was a year old, there was one day where I was looking over him as he slept in his crib, and he looked so peaceful as he was sleeping. And I remember standing there with tears like coming down my cheeks because he was broken out from his ankles to his neck. And it wasn't just like dry, patchy skin. He had eczema, but it was raw and open, and it was getting worse. Like anything I tried, it didn't really help. It was making it worse. And so I remember standing there feeling totally powerless, feeling like a failure as a mom, as a wife, as, you know, like all these things that I wanted to be so good at what I was doing. And I felt like I was failing him and my family. And so sought out some holistic help. And even that, then there were people questioning all those decisions. And it just felt like every step I took, instead of getting support, it felt like there was lack of support, and not only lack of support, but actively working against me. I felt unheard. I felt unseen, totally overwhelmed. And that continued. We had 2 more kids, and each of them had stuff like that too. So it was just like a wild ride. And I felt like I was kind of in it all on my own, because my husband was still very preoccupied with work, and kind of like the kids were my area. So you felt totally all alone. And one day when I was at my breaking point, I remember sitting on the floor in my bathroom and reading this blog that was actually about nutrition, but it started talking about really owning the energy that we come to this world with, and seeing it not as something that we need to hide, but something that when we embrace it, we actually flourish. And I knew in that moment that was going to be a pivotal point in my journey. And that actually started a lot of my healing. So
Wow.
That's kind of the background that got me to here.
Yeah. So awesome. And I think so many people have a similar story where they hit that rock bottom moment where they're like, how do I get out of this? How do I move forward with my life? And I know I've had my moments in my life where, and one particularly very pivotal moment, kind of like you, where I felt like I was letting my family down. I was letting my wife, my kids, my parents, my siblings, like I felt like I was letting everybody around me down. And yeah, it's like you have to almost come to this point where it's like, how do I get past this? And something has to click, something has to happen. Kind of like yours was that blog post. It's like, hey, here's some holistic information that might help you. And that's what sparked the ray of hope that you had in your future. And I love that, because I think everybody experiences that at some point, maybe different levels. Maybe, some people, like mine was, I was very depressed, and I was actually suicidal. I was to a point where I was going to take my life. And I had a very, what I call a spiritual moment that happened at that point. But, it's different for everybody, and there's different levels, of course, but, I'm grateful that you're willing to share that experience with people who are listening, and that you're out there telling people that, hey, there is hope. There is a way, to heal, to find answers, to holistically heal, not only emotionally, but physically. Like, and I know that's part of your story is this process, you and your kids went through this process of healing. So amazing.
Yeah. It was very amazing, because up until that point, like for my kids with all of their sensitivities, we had gone to shoot, I don't even know off the top of my head, probably close to 8 to 10 different practitioners just in the holistic world, where we'd go to someone and it would help for a while. Then we'd go to someone else. And when I say we, really me and my kids, it became a full-time job. And I was fortunate enough at the time where I didn't have to be working. But it was completely overwhelming, because it was pre all the blogs. It was pre having gluten-free food everywhere.
Right.
And we literally, the list of foods that my sons could not eat, especially my oldest, was so extensive. I usually run off a short list, not the whole list. It was dairy, gluten, soy, fish, nuts, most beans, melons, cucumbers, zucchini, pineapple, rice, corn, like anything he would eat for a while, he would then get sensitive to because his system was so hurting on the inside.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was, what's amazing is we had gone to all these different holistic people and they had helped us get to certain points, but it felt like, okay, but they're always going to be on a highly restricted diet. And they're always going to have somewhat of GI issues, but we can manage it. But what was amazing to me, like totally amazing beyond what I had ever even hoped for, was that pivotal day when I started to go, okay, I'm feeling led to seek this out, this more, and learn more about it, and really start the journey of saying, who am I really? Like, who was I made to be? And what are the natural gifts that I bring that I've maybe been thinking are detriments that need to be hidden, but they're actually gifts. And when I try to hide them, they show up in an out of balance way. So I like to tell people, like, think of it like, I don't know, like a balloon, and then you're trying to hold it all in. So you squeeze it and it pops out the side then, versus just being the gift it is. Whereas if we just allow it to be that balloon, it'll float up and it'll, look balanced and beautiful and bring a ray of sunshine to someone, brighten their day. And so, as I started working on that, and then also doing work to learn, boundaries, to start learning, like I was holding these beliefs that I was only worth what I produced, which is why I was striving so hard, why I was trying to be that perfect mom and be the perfect student when I was in school and do all these things, because I felt deep down like that proved that I was worthy of being heard or that I should be seen. And all it did was keep me on this hamster wheel and getting sicker and sicker. And when I started to recognize and accept the energy that I have and the gifts that I have, I started at first in myself noticing changes. Like within a month, chronic, like neck, upper back tension that I had had since for sure high school, because I developed TMJ, like jaw problems in high school. But I believe probably junior high is when I started getting that chronic tension. Within a month, disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah, I realized like I had spent so much energy trying to hold my energy in that my muscles were physically trying to hold my energy in. And then the more healing I did and the better I got at just, having healthy boundaries and coming alongside people versus like taking on their stuff, but saying, okay, that's yours and this is mine, but I'll come alongside you in it. Started seeing more and more healing. And all of a sudden it started affecting my family too. Like my kids who had this laundry list of stuff they couldn't eat and environmental things that would make them break out. Like now today can eat almost everything.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the only things that my oldest has to stay away from are fish, nuts, and dairy. But after having that huge laundry list of things, like it's amazing. In fact, that he's 16 now, so he loves to be a teenager and tell me like, I went to the gas station and ate 2 hot dogs and a Mountain Dew. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the energy I put into whole healthy foods for you. But the fact that he can do that is amazing. So it's also like, I really want parents, especially moms, to recognize when we do choose to say, oh, wait, we are important too, and we do our own healing, it impacts the whole family. And not only the whole family, then it starts to impact friends and the community. It's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, absolutely. And my wife and I have recognized that in our lives as well, as we've worked on ourselves and healed from the things that have, been in our past, or, got rid of as much of the negative thinking as we possibly can. And of course, there's always going to be some there, but as we work on that and we overcome it, we've noticed this ripple effect on our kids. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we're achievement coaches, is we've seen this huge impact that we've had on ourselves, our relationship, and then our kids' relationships. that we're like, man, we need to share this with as many people as we possibly can. So I totally understand and agree with what you're saying. It is such an amazing ripple effect that goes out. And the fact that you were able to, through, this holistic energy healing work that you did on yourself, it affected your kids in such a profound way, not just,
Yeah.
Our kids we've seen mostly, with their attitude and their interactions with each other, with us, with their friends, things like that. But you actually have seen like this physical, you know, benefits of it. And that's amazing. Like, that's so cool. I love that you have that. And one thing that I do want to point out is, as great as the medical field is, there's still so much that can be learned there, especially when it comes to how the body can really heal itself when we give it the attention and the positive energy that we want it to have.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree totally. And it's that whole I really do believe life is about finding balance, and the balance between the two, because, not that long ago, our middle son fell and broke his collarbone. So took him to the doctor. He needed x-rays. We needed to know if he needed surgery, but there's a place for all the holistic stuff too. And finding the bridge between the two, like, can be unstoppable then for the healing that our bodies can do.
yeah. Yeah. My wife and I, we have a daughter, our third daughter, who, she was born with some health issues. She was born with Hirschsprung's disease when she was young. Well, when she was born, and which is where the nerve endings in her colon didn't develop. So she was always contracted. So for the first 2 months of her life, she never had a bowel movement. Like, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
While we were trying to figure out what was wrong with her and stuff. And so she had to, at 2 months old, she had a colostomy done, where they brought a stoma out, and she had to, basically go to the bathroom in a bag for 2 years of her life, and all this stuff. Anyways, but it's affected so much of her. She's 10 now, and she still has issues with her, digestive tract and things like that. And, we would go to the doctors, and they would say, well, just give her laxatives. Cause sometimes she'd still get a little backed up, and, they're like, give her laxatives and this, and try to have us do all these crazy things. And none of it really worked. And it wasn't until we met some people who had, like, it's this special water. It's a holistic thing that just helps with, like, the probiotics and stuff like that in her gut, that she now she takes that a couple times a week. She's good. Like, it's that simple. And so,
yeah, that's awesome. Totally awesome.
It's just amazing how when you can find that balance, like you said, between, the Eastern and Western medicine, because obviously there's still a place for Western medicine, right? But so much of it, we try to just, cover what's really the root of the problem. And, so yeah, it's just amazing to me that you've been able to overcome so much amazing adversity in your family's life with what you've been able to figure out and find out. So super cool. So I want to ask you this, and I think that this is a critical part to people understanding, tapping into their greatness, is what kept you going during all those years of, trying to figure this out, the kind of struggle that you had to go through. What kept you going? What motivated you?
Okay. Well, when I was younger, what kept me going was really probably not a healthy, which is why I was like burning the candle at both ends and not being healthy. It was like I wanted to prove that I was, okay.
Right.
But really, like with everything going on with the kids, it really was like, I want to be able to help them and help them have a better life. And that's one thing, like my whole life, I've been one of those people who I think a lot about situations as they occur. And then afterward, and I'd be like, okay, what did I do? What could I have done? What went well? What could have gone better? Like always trying to be a better version of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, that used to be at an out of balance level where it became like an anxiety. But then as I've done this work, which really was driven by, part of it was, I want better for my kids. I want better for my kids. And then the other part was, we can't keep going at this pace. Like I knew something had to give.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was keeping an eye on like a long-term goal.
Awesome. And I want to just kind of touch back on something that you've mentioned a few times now, is this drive that you had to always be the best or the perfect version of yourself. And I find that women in particular, over, interviews that I've done with the last couple of months for the podcast and everything, and then just other, my wife is a recovering perfectionist and things like that, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, I call it that.
But it seems like women really struggle with that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. And maybe a lot of it has to come with social norms, right? Like the mom is supposed to be this all powerful, all knowing, she's supposed to be the cook. She's supposed to be the cleaner. She's supposed to be the parent teacher mom. She's supposed to be it's like superwoman, all do everything. And when they feel or fall short of what they feel like other women are accomplishing, they have this really hard time with themselves, right? Like they're kind of like you said, you felt like you were letting everybody down and things. And of course, there's other aspects to that with the kids' health and stuff. But I really think a lot of women, particularly, and men do too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like point out like the sexes, but I think women struggle more than men. Men have other issues, right? Like,
yeah. With obviously any comment's going to be like a generalization. Like it might not. I always think like bell curve, like, are you in the middle 80% or an outlier, but for a majority of people. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I do think as a culture, there's a lot of messages about, be small, but not too small, be big, but not too big, know when to speak up, but be quiet, but be, so there's a lot of almost like conflicting messages. And trying to navigate that can be kind of challenging. Also, I'll speak for myself because this is not true for everyone. I know for myself, there was also this underlying feeling that I needed to prove that I was just as good as a man. And that was also, I think, I am a believer that will attract to us things that will confirm what we believe deep down. So, I believed deep down that I wasn't going to be heard or that I wasn't worthy of being heard. So I attracted relationships into my life, whether they were friendships or in my marriage or with coworkers where I wasn't heard. And legitimately, my voice wasn't being heard, but then the why, I had to ask myself, well, why? Like, what's I'm a common factor in all of these relationships. So what's going on? But oh my goodness, lost my train of thought.
Yeah. So and that's a good point. Because you're right. The energy we put out there does attract what we put out, right? We hear it all the time. And that's why it's so important when I teach my kids, like, hey, the more positive you are, the more in tune you are with how you feel and putting out, positive things, that's what you're going to attract. And when we put out, negativity, or I'm not being heard, or my voice is too small, or my, all the things we tell ourselves, and we all have thoughts, right? We all have things that we tell ourselves. And, as we tell ourselves those things, that's what's going to show up in our life. It's like when you're like car shopping, you're like, I'm going to get a white, whatever, right? Volkswagen, I don't know. And then all of a sudden you just start seeing them all over the place, right? It's because there's more Volkswagens out there. It's just, you start noticing it.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. Like once we become like aware of what we're doing, then we can be like, oh, that's why that's there in my life. That's why those things are happening. And then you can, hopefully you can reverse, in your mind, like, what did I do to cause that? What can I do differently going forward so that doesn't keep showing up the way I don't want it to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why a lot of, I'm guessing, as an achievement coach, you probably do mindset work.
Oh yeah.
I do mindset work with people too, because yeah, it's so powerful, that confirmation bias that we're going to see what we're looking for, what we believe to be true is like so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And mindset is so important. You know, for people, maybe they don't understand what mindset is. It's just how you think, right? It's
Yeah.
what we put our focus into and our thoughts, and that's what causes our emotions, and our emotions cause our actions, and actions cause our results, right? So
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
it's really that
Absolutely.
simple. Although hard, it's simple.
Yes, I know, right? For sure. I know shifting the mindset can seem daunting, but that's, I had heard affirmations, do affirmations. And I, at one point, was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'll try it. I'll try anything for a period of time. So I told myself, I'm going to give myself 30 days. And I had a list of affirmations. And I said, I'm going to commit to 30 days saying these affirmations every morning. Or I did an audio recording of it on my phone.
Uh-huh.
So I could, like, if I was in the car, I could just play it while I was driving or while I was brushing my teeth, hit play on my phone.
Right.
And, and because I told myself, well, if anything, I'm out a few minutes every day for 30 days. Like, that's worst case scenario. I'm in the same position. Best case scenario, I'm in a way better position. And it was right around day 30. One of the affirmations was, I receive compliments with grace and ease.
Mm.
And which was not true of me. I think that's not true of a lot of people, probably, especially women. There's that, like, oh, I feel like the need to say a compliment back, or I feel like I don't deserve the compliment, or it feels uncomfortable, and I had totally been in that camp where I didn't feel comfortable receiving compliments, even though deep down I wanted them. I just didn't feel comfortable getting them.
Yep.
So it was probably like day 28 or 29. I mean, it was almost day 30. And I sing in a local choir, and I was at choir practice. And one of the members, right before rehearsal, gave me a compliment, and I looked at her and just said, "Oh, thank you. That's so nice." And I walked away, and all of a sudden I went, I just received a compliment with grace and ease. I'm a believer.
Awesome.
So that converted me. I was like, yes, I do believe these work.
Well, and that's I think an important thing for people to realize is, when we use affirmations, and an affirmation isn't meant to be something like, it's not a fake it till you make it type thing, right? It's just,
Right.
you are telling yourself you're going to show up the best version that you possibly want to be.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
as you tell yourself those things and you affirm it into your mind, right? It goes into the subconscious, and then eventually, like, yeah, you believe it, right? Like you did with your compliment. Like, oh, thanks. And that's something that I know I've had to work on as well, because lots of times people will pay a compliment to somebody and they'll be like, oh no, and they'll push it away.
Exactly.
There's all these things that we do, like, oh, thanks, and you kind of roll your eyes, or all the things, and you're not really accepting it. And that's just one example of the things that we tell ourselves. But I think a lot of times people are like, well, you're lying to yourself if you tell yourself that you're, accepting compliments with ease and grace, or whatever, right? You're just telling yourself, like, hey, this is how I want to show up, the best version of myself today.
Yeah.
And I know it's important to me. And so I'm going to keep drilling that into my subconscious until it becomes something that really does happen. And it's not a fake it till you make it. It's just what I want to be, what I'm working and striving to be better at. So, I love that. I love that you have such an awesome story about how affirmations helped you. Because I truly believe in them. I believe I have my affirmations I say, and there's times I'm good at them. There's times I'm not good at them, and but they do work. They do help produce results. So
a funny story when you were talking about it's not lying to yourself. I was in the car with one of my sons driving down to a karate tournament. I am a second degree black belt. I haven't done karate for a couple of years, but I was used in a competition team for a while and I was very nervous. And so I was like, oh, dang, I'm nervous. And then I said, no, I'm not nervous. I am welcoming peace. I am feeling, and I started saying the affirmations, and my son, who's very analytical, said, see, why do you do that? And I said, why do I do what? And he said, why do you lie to yourself?
Wow. Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm not lying to myself. And basically what you said, like just getting into a different mindset, starting to shift to believe, oh, wait, I have the power to change my perception.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's another great example, where we tell ourselves what the outcome we want. And
Yeah.
Athletes at their top of their game, they do that to themselves all the time. You always see them, football players before they take the field, or basketball players while they're warming up, they'll be saying things to themselves, or they'll be in the locker room, just, in their thoughts. And they're not just sitting there like, oh, I want a cheeseburger, right? Like, no, they're like, I'm going to hit those 3-pointers. I'm going to be the best player on the court tonight. I'm going, they're telling themselves, Usain Bolt doesn't go out on the track and be like, I'm okay. Right. No,
right.
I'm the best runner on this field right now.
Yep.
And they tell themselves that until they believe it. And those are the ones that are successful. And so, I love that. The black belt story, the karate story is awesome.
Yeah.
That's how you get to where you want to go, is by telling yourself that's what you want. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about the tiny habits certification that you have. I know a little bit about it, not a lot, but tell me a little bit about how this works, like tiny habits. What does that mean for those who are listening? How does that help people get what they want in life?
Okay, awesome. Just so you know, there's a book called Tiny Habits, The Small Changes That Change Everything. It's written by BJ Fogg, who's a professor at Stanford. So, and that's who the certification training is through his organization. But at a high level, it's basically just the concept of he looked at what makes up a behavior. And really, if we break it down, what are the components of a behavior? So, okay, it's an equation, and it involves motivation, it involves ability, and it involves a prompt, like something that would trigger us to want to do it. So if we're not doing something, if we have a habit, if there's something we say like, I want to drink, when they say like the 80 ounces of water a day, and I'm not doing it, then instead of feeling shame about it, you can say, oh, behavior is an equation. What in the equation is off? So what can I do to start shifting that? And with tiny habits, the easiest thing to shift in the equation is the ability. So you make it really, really tiny. And so if you want to have like an example would be, if you want to have the habit of drinking 80 ounces of water a day, make it really tiny and actually say, after I wake up, I will take 1 sip of water. But then there's a key part to it, which I love about tiny habits, which is that you celebrate after, like instant celebration. And really it's more just like, the atta girl or atta boy, like either a big smile or pat yourself on the back or whatever. But what that does is it releases dopamine, which is the happy chemical. And so if you celebrate right after, your body gets a hit of the happy chemical, it'll go, oh, wait, what did I just do that released that happy chemical? I want to keep doing that. And so, it's a way to shift behavior and kind of turn the whole idea of how to create habits upside down. So many of us have been told it takes 21 days to create a habit. And so many habit speakers, authors focus on motivation, and motivation waxes and wanes. It's normal for motivation to be really high one day and really low another day. And so this is a way of saying, no, how can we plant a seed and make sure we're watering it each day? And then on the days where our motivation is high, we take it much bigger. And on the days where our motivation is low, we still at least have the tiny part of the habit going. So that's kind of the overall premise of it. And I've actually been able to, the first 3 tiny habits I did, I started, oh goodness, over a year ago, and I haven't missed a day. And from day one, like, you really can create a new habit in a day or 2. If it's not working, you just play with the equation until you figure out, how to make it work.
Very
But
cool.
I love that it takes the shame element out of it. That's a big, and that there's the focus on celebration, because it goes back to that whole positive mindset. Like,
Yep.
if we feel badly about ourselves, it's going to be harder to get stuff done. Whereas if we can be a little more objective and say, no, it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that I'm lazy. It's that something's just wrong with this. And let me do a little figuring out, a little sleuthing, and then I can set myself up for success.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And, I teach similar things, obviously not exactly like that, but
Yeah.
I teach people, in goal setting, like, hey, set a goal and make it a big goal. But as you reach different milestones, then reward yourself, celebrate that milestone that you reach. Like if you want to
Yeah.
lose 20 pounds and you lose 3 pounds in the week, like reward yourself, celebrate that. Like, maybe
Yes.
give yourself a little piece of dark chocolate or something, like give you something to say, man, I did good this week. I did awesome. And it's that
Yeah.
same concept, right? Because as you celebrate those wins and you release that dopamine, it causes momentum. And that's where you want
Yes.
to keep. That's where
Yep.
motivation comes from, right? Is
Yep.
momentum. And you see the progress, because lots of times we get stuck on like, oh, I'm not progressing as fast as I want, or I'm not where I wanted to be at this point in the
Yep.
year or whatever. And then we get down on ourselves. And then that's when we lose all motivations. Like, oh, I suck. I'm horrible. I'm never going to do it. I'm
Yep.
not going to reach that. Or the habit's too hard to create, or whatever it is. And we fail to look back and be like, well, maybe I'm not as far as I wanted to be, but look at how far I've come. And
Yes.
we need to keep.
Yes. And that's why I love, oh my gosh, I love having people keep journals that they don't well, I use journaling for lots of different things, but one of them is to even just say, like, put one sentence, or like keep a scale of 1 to 10, and each day write like an overall how you're feeling, or have a few categories, because so many people think that healing should just look like steady climb up, but it actually looks like this. And when we're in the middle of a dip, we can forget that we've come a long way. We've dipped down a little, but we're still way higher than we used to be. And so it can be super beneficial to, like you said, celebrate those small wins along the way, because it also shifts into an attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
So that's going to just get us more positive energy, more positive results. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up gratitude, because I believe that gratitude is a key factor in how we view things around us and our perspective. I
Yes.
really do believe that gratitude opens up our perspective, because lots of times we get stuck in this,
Mm-hmm.
we have blinders on, like, oh, my life is horrible. It sucks. It's awful. This thing I'm going through, I'm the only one who understands it, blah, 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 right? All the things we tell ourselves when we're in that moment, when we're dipping down or going through a hard thing or a struggle, and we're like, we get stuck in that mindset of nobody understands, or whatever.
Yeah.
But when we can say, you know what, yes, this is hard, but man, I still have this in my life, or my kids are still with me, or my house, I still can sleep in a warm home, or, whatever it is, there's always something to be grateful for. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, my perspective just opens up, and you can look around and be like, you know what, as bad as this is that I'm going through, I'm not dealing with stuff to other people that might be harder. Maybe to them, for me, it would be super hard. For them, it's just, they have to deal with chronic pain, or, whatever it is. Right. And it just allows us to have that perspective. And so I'm glad you brought gratitude up. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, and I found one of the things with gratitude that helped me shift the most was actually having the attitude of gratitude about the challenge. So to shift from a mindset of like, this is so frustrating that this thing is happening, to say, oh, this is a setup for healing.
Yeah.
This is setting me up to learn something about myself. And even, I had one very frustrating interaction. Well, I've had lots of frustrating interactions with people, right? All of us have,
Sure.
but one in particular that was really frustrating. And I was like, in the moment, turned the phone off and was just so frustrated, like wanted to yell, and said to myself, okay, wait a second. I'm so glad that this is happening because I can learn something about myself. And then actually took the moment to say, okay, what am I feeling? And it actually led to a huge breakthrough. Like, cause all of a sudden I realized, the old me would have been like, it's his fault. He's doing this. And objectively, yes, the person was being rude and objectively they were being mean and they were not being truthful. Those are objectively, yes, but I can't control that. And when I was stuck in the yuck and in the chaos and in the stress and anxiety, it was because in those moments, I would try to control that person, like stop doing that to me, versus saying, well, what can I do? And I all of a sudden realized, oh, I'm mad because I feel tiny. I feel like a little kid and I feel like I have no power. So what can I do to shift that? How can I feel like I have more power, and not like wielding power, just holding my space, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And so then, like that situation that, 15 years ago I would have been upset for days about it. I was like, oh, this is an awesome opportunity. And it was. And by that afternoon, interestingly enough, that person reached out to me and was like, oh, I was thinking about it. What if we do this instead? And was like, respectful and kind, and like all of the energy had shifted. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's a great story of, how we can always look at the struggle that we're going through as either a blessing or a curse, right? Like,
Yeah.
because we can learn, and we have to go through struggle in order to learn and to grow and to oftentimes get out of our comfort zone, or just become the person we're meant to become. It comes through struggle. The Navy SEALs have a saying, embrace the suck, right? Like,
Yeah.
if they have things that they have to go through, some of them are pretty awful things that they have to do, right? Navy SEALs have some hard stuff they have to deal with, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so that's what they're saying is embrace the suck. And it's like, we can keep that perspective of, like you said, step back and be like, what can I learn from this? What am I supposed to be getting out of this situation? Then everything shifts, right? Everything changes.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming a learning experience instead of just my life is horrible, woe is me,
And then like you said, and then in the moment you can also be like, and I have, a roof over my head, and I have, for you, a wife who loves me, and all the other awesome things within it. Yeah.
My kids are, they're alive, they're healthy, they're whatever. All the things. And there's always something to be grateful for. Even if, if you're the homeless person on the side of the street with just a dog, like, at least I have a dog, like whatever. Like, I mean, there's always something. And we just have to keep that in mind, to be grateful for those things and keep that perspective for sure. So I love that. So I want to ask you, I've been thinking, like, what have you had to give up to become who you are? If there's something that you would say you really had to give up to become who you are today, what would that be?
Well, I had to give up the idea that I could control the world around me. That was probably, and start learning that when I let myself be carried by the flow, life flows and good things happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But in the process too, I mean, from a practical standpoint, in the process too of healing and shifting, I was told, as you heal, you're going to see relationships change, and some of them will fall away because they're not right for you. You realize that it was more a toxic relationship, and that'll fall away. But remember, it's opening the door for new relationships. And that is what I have found. So that is something that I had to let go of or step away from, which sometimes is challenging, but then keeping that gratitude attitude and saying good is coming. Yes.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like sometimes having to step away from those relationships that we've had, some of them for years and years and years or for our whole life is really tough. And I know there's been some in my life that and not that I totally have pushed people away, but there's been friends that are not as close of friends as they used to be and things like that, that you feel like, I'm in a different place now. Like I'm in a different spot and they are in a different spot as well. And that's okay. But like I've gone through my journey, I've met so many amazing people like yourself at events or, just, by doing interviews like this or different things that I'm like, it's amazing when you open yourself up to those new relationships and those new opportunities that things do come and they start flowing. That flow, like you said, is so amazing. So
yes. And realizing like it can be so much better than what you thought it could be at the beginning,
Yep.
And then it becomes believing it can be even better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally believe, exactly what you're saying. And I get it. And I hope that those listening understand that as well. And there's always something better out there waiting. Right. Like, and I love I can't remember who said it or where I heard it, but it's like, in order to let new things into your life, you need to put new or old things behind you. And that's what I found true in my life, is to let those new things, those new opportunities, those new relationships, those new learning experiences, those new shifts in our mindset perspective. I have to put old stuff behind me in order to let those new ones in. And it's true with everything. So it is a flow. It's a flow of energy. It's a flow of people. It's a flow. And there's people that I knew in my beginning days of my journey that I haven't seen much of since the beginning days of my, self-improvement and things. And then every once in a while, somebody will pop back up and it's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Right. Like it's a cycle, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's also an honoring of where they're at in their process and being okay with it, because that's years ago, I didn't understand how to have the totally judgment-free attitude. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I'm not mad at you that we're in different spots. We're just in different spots, and that's okay. And I can still love who you are. Like, say it's a friend. I can still love you as a friend, but know that we're just not right for each other right now. And who knows, our paths might reconverge. Like you said, with some of the people that have kind of popped back in at times, or they might not, but there can still be respect and love for each other from afar, just knowing we're in different places.
Yep, exactly. Super awesome. I love that. So we have been going for a little while, and I can't believe, like, my timer on my recorder says 52 minutes, and I'm like, holy cow, has it really been that long already? It's just gone by super fast. So I want to give people an opportunity who want to reach out to you and connect with you and learn more about whether it's the tiny habits or fitness or all these amazing things that you have certified, coaching in. Where can people get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to learn more about you and get a hold of you and what you do?
Yeah, the best place would be on my website, which is www.phoenixrisingwellness.com, all one word. And actually on the website, there is, even with Tiny Habits, there's a free 5-day program that's like through email. You get little videos and emails every day, and then I coach via email for 5 days. So there's a sign up for that if people are interested, but there's also a contact me Otherwise, they could just reach out directly. My email is Angie@phoenixrisingwellness.com.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
For those who are listening and the things that Angie has talked about resonates with you, please reach out to her. She's, like I said, when we first met, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got so much amazing energy and just like this was ray of sunshine. Like it was awesome. So that's why I wanted to come up and approach you and chat with you. But and then your story is just fantastic. And I know there's more to it that we didn't get to. And maybe I need to do a follow-up with you in a few months and have you on again. But I've absolutely loved having you on the show. And I just appreciate your perspective and all your insights that you've shared with people. And especially like the little tools about tiny habits was awesome. So cool.
Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome talking to you too. When you said 52 minutes, I was like, what?
yeah, almost 55 now. It's time flies. But I always like to ask this question, kind of wrap things up. And that is, if there's 1 to 3 things you'd say someone needs to do to unleash greatness within themselves, what would that be?
Okay. Well, each of these I know are a little loaded because there's more that goes into it. But one would be decide that you are important enough to focus on and to heal, to choose the steps or to choose the goals. So you are important and believe that. And then the 2 would be to celebrate what are your gifts, to start shifting your focus from, what are things that people have criticized me for that actually might be gifts I can share with this world. And the 3rd thing would be to step into your fear. Because usually, I imagine it like a big fear, like a wall made out of fear. And on the other side is all this sunlight and this gorgeous meadow, and just get through the wall instead of running away from it. So.
Awesome. Amazing. I love those. Those are 3 things that I agree with. And honestly, those are 3 that I haven't had anybody share on my show yet. So I'm
awesome.
I know most people are like, oh, love yourself. And of course, those are all important things. But I love the way you put that. So step into yourself, find your talents, use them, and then face your fears. That's great. Fantastic.
Well, and a lot of our gifts are a lot of times what we're criticized for as kids. So we don't see them as gifts,
Sure.
The one I like to use is, someone who's, oh, they're so stubborn or blah, blah, blah. Well, that's really negative, but actually that means they have a very strong sense of will. They will stand by their values. That's a really positive trait. So seeing the positive side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've had to work on with my kids is I've seen those things because as a parent, you're always like, oh, why do you gotta be that way? Right. They're stubborn or they're loud or they're whatever.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you got to step back sometimes and be like, am I squishing them down? Am I trying to get them to, stop using those gifts that they have, their voice or their talents that they make if I keep telling them these things? And as frustrating as it can be, like we have to be open to like you say, to not make them feel like they have to hide those things because they are gifts. They are super amazing things that I believe will serve them in later years, even though they can be frustrating right now. They're awesome. So so cool. I love that you shared that. So thank you so much. Again, it's been great. I've enjoyed having you on the show, and maybe we need to do another follow-up here in later this year and just get more of your story and what you're doing. So
awesome.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an awesome time. And I was so excited when you came up and talked to me at that conference, and it's been awesome.
Very cool. I'm glad we connected. I'm glad that you're willing to come on and share your story. So those who are listening, please reach out to Angie. She is awesome. She's amazing. And I've only known her for a short time, but just she's so easygoing and just has such an amazing energy about her that I would suggest reaching out to her and finding out more what she can do to help you if you feel that her services and her coaching could benefit you in your life. So reach out to her. I'll make sure to put the links in the description below this podcast or YouTube, depending on where you're watching or listening to it. And you can connect with her. So again, Angie, thank you so much for being here. And it's been amazing. So
thank you.
And those listening, please go out and unleash the greatness within yourself, live your life to the fullest, and have an amazing day.